Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting will be now called to order of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. I'm going to ask Representative Danny Mathis if he would lead us in a word of prayer to start us off with.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you to the folks that have come today to talk about a serious problem here. And we just pray for your guidance. We pray for your strength. We pray for you to give the strength to the folks that are protecting us, our public safety, our police, our Fulton County Sheriff's Department, our DAs, all of them. Father, we just ask that you would wrap your arms around them and let's come to a solution on this and help the city of Atlanta. What's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. We have a sign-up sheet for anyone who would wish to speak. Today, we're very honored to have Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis here with us today. I know we tried to have her last week and there was a scheduling conflict, and she was gracious enough to come out on Thanksgiving week to give us her time. So this committee has been meeting, as you probably well know, over the course of the summer to maybe hear testimony from different people to discuss some of the problems that we've seen with a spike in crime in Atlanta. Not necessarily to pick on the city of Atlanta, but Atlanta is the capital city and it's a very important city to the state of Georgia. I know we've seen crime increase throughout the city, particularly in the Columbus area, Savannah, some other pockets of the state. But this committee was charged with trying to find some solutions to the problems that we have seen here in our capital city, because it is a very important piece of the puzzle for the great state of Georgia. So we just want to hear from you and listen to some of the things that you've done since you've taken office. I know you've changed some things around and changed the posture of the DA's office. And we would like to hear some suggestions and comments from you as to the situation that we're facing here in the capital city of the state.
Collins, and thank you for each of you gentlemen. I know it's at the end of the term and it is Thanksgiving week, but yet you found this an important enough issue and really showed a heart of service. So I really want to thank you. I'm very humbled that one, you allowed me to not come last week, but you would still make time to make an audience to hear from us this week, because it is such a vital and an important issue. I've have prepared a PowerPoint and I'm not shy. I imagine you all as elected officials are not shy either. At any point, if you need me to stop or if at the end you have questions, I am here to field questions. I understand that I work at your pleasure and at your service. And so I want you to please feel free to do that. I want to just talk to you, first of all, about the fact that the problems in Atlanta, because it is a capital city, and the problems in Fulton County, because it is the hub. I'm very proud to be the district attorney from this community. It's where I reside. It's where I raise my children. And I tell people it is one of the best counties, not just in the state of Georgia, but in my opinion, in the nation. And there's several reasons for that. One is it's a very diverse community, diverse in sexual orientations, religions, race. It brings the melting pot together. It really represents what we want America to be, a diverse community that can thrive. It's the city of Martin Luther King. So it's not great when you have the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and CNN and Fox 5 and all of these national networks noticing our problem. It's certainly not the way we want to gain attention for our state, for the city of Atlanta, and for Fulton County. Atlanta has the fastest rising murder rate of any major city in the country during COVID. And I made this representation to the Senate before you. And so now we included in it the reference for which this comes. And I think they did some fact checks on me and found I was telling the truth. So unfortunately, I wish I wasn't telling the truth, but that is where we find ourselves. Right now in my office, I have 636 defendants indicted for murder. I want to be very clear. Those are defendants, not cases. And so that may only represent about 590 something cases, but it's 635 defendants because you have 2 co-defendant cases. We also, I want you to know that since I came here in March, because March is when we started running the grand jury. So in 8 months, I have indicted 208 defendants for the crime of murder. And I'm a long way from done. I have 184 cases, or I should say to be more accurate, defendants that we are currently evaluating for murder. And about a third of those, so you know, are on this 90-day rule and must be indicted between now and the end of the year, or else they will be released as a matter of law on bond. And I'm not saying that people should not get out on bond, but you should get out not for some technical reason, but because the court really looked at you and saw that it was fit for you to have bond. And so about a third of that number we're in a bind in, and I've talked about that before publicly. Murders in Fulton County have increased by 48% since 2020. And some of you all may say, well, is she just kind of playing with the numbers? Is that because 2020 was the year of COVID and people were at home? No, the numbers in 2020 were actually higher than the numbers in 2019. So we're going in a negative way once again. Murders in the city of Atlanta have increased by 60%, 141 homicides in November of 14 to 157 in this year. And so I want to make sure that we never get lost. That's 16 lives. That's 16 families that are impacted. That's not just a number, but this shows you the increase from last year to this year. I want to talk to you about this issue of gangs. It's something that I'm not shy about. You asked about my security as we walked in, and I've made some gang members mad, and we know that because we study social media and we watch. But this is a problem, and I need people to stop pretending like, oh, we're the great state of Georgia. We don't have gang problems. That only happens in Chicago, New York. No, we are a major metropolitan city, and unfortunately, we have gang problems. And it's really not new. It's just newly being talked about and being talked about so publicly. Because my theory is if you don't acknowledge the problem, you can't solve it. And so I'm here today to talk about acknowledging that there's an issue. So statewide, and I want you to know these numbers are really low. And the reason that I say that they're low is we don't have all of our law enforcement agencies actually reporting to GAAA, which is the agency that keeps these numbers. But of what they could gain, we know that there are 71,000 statewide. There are 50,000 just in Metro Atlanta. So that's not just Fulton County, but all of our partner cities, right? Everything that's right around here, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Clayton, if you go down to the south, 50,000 in Metro 11. And what I'm here to tell you is the worst fact. The reason that I concentrate on the gang members is because they are responsible for anywhere the statistics show between 70 and 90% of violent crimes. They are a problem, and they are a problem that just keeps the gift of keep giving and giving and giving, because they do not mind putting in this work so that they can elevate within their organizations. There are 400,000 juveniles in the United States that join gangs annually, and this is really important. This is the generation we cannot afford to lose, and so we have to talk about options. I always talk about I'm a murder prosecutor. That is what I am born and bred to do, but I have realized that we cannot only prosecute our way out of this problem. We do have to prosecute our way out of this problem. We have to deal with violent offenders, but we're also going to have to find some alternatives so we can stop this trend of juveniles getting caught up in the system. Juveniles and gangs were responsible for the majority of the crimes recorded in 15 states, and one of those 15 states was Georgia. And so this is why we have to pay attention and make decisions that are going to stop them ever getting in the gangs in the first place. This is a serious issue for me, and it's someplace that I hope your committee will really pay attention. What are we going to do new and innovative to capture our youth and keep them out of this? Because if we don't do something new and innovative, what we are promised to do is to make criminals and to make more victims. And so this is a really important issue. It's an issue I hope that you all will continue to focus on. Girls who become engaged in gang members are used to recruit young new girls into trafficking. I want to really stop a minute and tell you all a story. And it's really a horrible story. What do I mean by this? What gangs use juvenile girls for is sex trafficking. It's another way they can make money. Gangs have really branched off. They do some things that are really ingenious. We're seeing the fact that they are really doing a lot of employment fraud. They are doing a lot of white collar crime, but they are also big into human trafficking. And the reason is it's kind of smart, right? If you sell drugs, you sell it, then that's that one time you get a profit. But a young lady you can use over and over again, and she can continue to bring proceeds to you. Just recently, we had a young girl that had a lot of issues. She was in one of our kind of halfway facilities, and what she did was recruit other young girls. And we have a RICO gang indictment where this other young girl was recruited into the gang, met her friend, right? You met this friend in the facility. And then a lot of ugly things happened to her, things that we don't talk about in polite conversation. And she was used over and over again. And this is a growing trend of using gangs to human traffic. And it's a major problem. Violent gang crime has spread to all corners of Fulton County, and this is what I have to keep telling people. This is not just a South Fulton problem. This doesn't just happen in Union City and the South Side and Southwest Atlanta. This is happening everywhere from down in my lowest city on the South Side, Palmetto, all the way up to Milton and Alpharetta. And sometimes they use those neighborhoods that are more affluent, like your Buckheads, like your Alpharetta, like Sandy Springs, Milton, and they use it for shopping. And I do literally mean shopping, going, robbing people, taking cars, and then selling them, and other crimes that can bring proceeds, some a lot more violent than just taking cars. So it is just causing our numbers to go up everywhere within the county, not just in the city of Atlanta. And that's a point that I hope that you all remember. It doesn't just infect, lower income neighborhoods. Gang crime is really spreading to affect all different socioeconomic crimes, and they don't mind. They do not mind. They do not care about your wife, your child, what you've worked hard for. What they care about is being able to advance themselves in the gang and to make proceeds for the gang. So from Alpharetta to Palmetto, here are just some local stories. This was a story that actually spread out to one of our neighboring counties in Coweta, and it was some kids that had been recruited by the Bloods here in Fulton County, the 9 Trey Bloods to be specific, and they were going to Cherokee County and they were selling things to get donations for the gang. They were coming back. So that's just a really good example. Cherokee's not my county, but it's certainly a neighboring county. I'm fond of the DA there, where this crime doesn't stay. They have no respect of boundaries, right? Here's another case that just talks about what I just talked about. There's a sex trafficking sting and nearly 160 children, authorities say. Recently, my office participated in Operation Not Forgotten, which was where we worked with the United States Marshal, and we literally just went out and found children that were taken and were used for sex trafficking. One of the cases that sticks with me the most was a little 9-year-old girl who had a 30-something-year-old man in the room with her in Sandy Springs. It's happening everywhere. Everywhere it is happening. And it's really things that are very ugly and we hate to think about, but they're existing here within the state of Georgia and in our community. So what is the solution? I always tell people it's fine to bring me a problem, but we also need to be very focused on what are some of the things that we can do to solve these problems, to advance, to get ahead. So we're not here next year. Maybe we still are in problem areas. We can't, give a magic elixir and solve all of this in one day, but we can certainly start working towards a direction of solution. And so one problem is the enforcement of violent gang crime. And so what do I mean by this? One thing I mean is the education piece. And so one thing my office has been doing, and I think it's important we do all across the state, is that we have our local law enforcement partners educated so that when they see evidence of gang crimes, they are very specific about documenting it, making sure that those things that may not seem small, that they know that those are signs of gang activity and that they document it. And then that they do the even more important thing, which is that they take out the appropriate warrants, gang warrants. So we have to make sure that we are putting the resources into having local law enforcement agencies, not just in Fulton County, all across the state of Georgia, making sure that they document these things appropriately. And then the other thing is something I've alluded to already. One, we have to be serious about enforcement. District Attorney's Office have to be serious about prosecuting these crimes, which is why I want the gang warrants taken. So we never not charge that extra crime, which allows us to have extra time and keep people off the street longer. But also we have to stop their source of getting more people in. And so that goes to the programs angle, because I do think that these things are married to each other and go hand in hand for a solution. One thing is, people don't want me to say it, and I think I've irritated half the state by saying it, but the truth is the truth. We need more resources across the state. Right now, I want to talk to you a little bit about this. How do we help people? So we have partnered with, and I don't know if you all know this organization, but you need to. It's a very important organization. It's called Credible Messenger. It works with organizations like Chris 180 and different things that are really working with our community. But what Credible Messengers is just what it says. You know, sometimes I hope some of you all are parents in here, and you can talk to your kids and talk to your kids and talk to your kids, right? But you're not cool, and you don't know what you're talking about, and they won't listen to you. But you usually have planted, I know I did with my girls, this auntie that maybe they thought was cool, and you could get messaging through to your children through them. They might say the exact same thing as you, but somehow coming from that aunt or that uncle or that big brother, it was credible. These credible messengers are people that are just that. They are people that have been in the gang, they gangbangers. They've usually done a stint in prison. Sometimes they're the mama who lost their child to prison, so they can talk to the mothers and the families about what it's like. It ain't glamorous like it look in the rap video or in the video. It is a hard life. And from those credible messengers, we can capture people. Also, we have to offer wraparound services. And what I mean by wraparound services is what we realize is we have to deal with the entire person. Sometimes that's making sure the mother has an educational component or just a way to get the child to the program. This summer, I partnered with the United States Attorney's Office, Mr. Kurt Erskine, and we partnered with Credible Messenger. We were about 2-3 weeks into the program, and the deputy of my juvenile division called me, and he was frantic. He was saying, it's not working because the kids don't have a way to get to the program. Their parents don't have cars, things me and you probably take for granted. Or if the parent does have a car, they got to get to their first and second job. They don't have time to take this kid to the program. And so I immediately took some of my forfeiture money and paid for those children to get to the program. So we have to do common sense things like that, really evaluating, making sure we are able to get these kids to the programs. And most of those children did very well while in the program. Let me tell you why we failed and why this grant is so important. What we realized is the program was great while it was lasting, right? And then summer ended and we just released them. Just release those children, send them back into their neighborhoods, their environments, no mentorship around them, no wraparound services. Just, we did something great for 10 weeks, but then the 10 weeks are over. We have to make sure that these things are ongoing till we get these babies to college and to trade school or to a better path. And so it's very important that not only we invest in these kind of programs, but that we continue to invest in them. Because basically what we're doing is investing in our children, but more important, we're investing in not becoming victims, because they only got a few options. And a lot of them just don't have what you and I took for granted. Parents that got on our nerves. They just don't have it. They do not have it. And we're going to have to make sure that things that are so commonplace to us that we are providing. So I want to talk to you about this because this is just one of the things that has me sometimes banging my head against the wall. What the national average, and this comes from Prosecutors National Standards, shows you is that the average prosecutor, and I use homicides because it's the biggest case, and it's the case we have the smallest number of, right? In every other category you can take for granted, we got more child molestations, more rapes, more armed robberies, more ag assaults, but this is kind of our smallest column. Thank God, it's the loss of life. So we have, what they say is that one prosecutor should do 20 homicide cases a year. Now, I started this by telling you I was a murder prosecutor, and I was known for out-trying most of my colleagues, if not all, and I'm talking about year after year. I typically in a given year would try about 13 murders, which is more than one a month. I'm a trial lawyer. I love trials. And then I would probably manage through plea or another maybe 15 or so a year we would get through. Most homicides are not going to plea, right? Because the offers aren't that favorable. So these are cases you are going to have to resolve through trial. Well, what we know is that with 636 plus the 184, that our judges will have 54 cases a year, just homicides. Now, let me do just a little education piece. And when I said not 54 cases, I want to be specific, 54 defendants. But if you're in a 3 co-defendant case, that case is likely to take you 3 weeks. If you're in a 1 co-defendant case, it's likely to tell you a week. I'm not telling you what I'm guessing. I'm telling you what I've done for 25 years now. I have tried these cases. The average for a homicide trial is 1 week. It's just common sense. If you have 54 murders in your courtroom, murder defendants, it's going to take you 54 weeks. Well, that's more weeks than you have in the year. You haven't touched another case. You haven't touched one. You haven't had an opportunity to look at another case. And that's not the way we can do business. So how long will it take us to get from behind the 8 ball? I want to do this because I'm not sure how many of you are attorneys and have practiced criminal law, which is the best law to practice. But once the police make an arrest, it's not like television. The cases do not come to us ready. The cases come to us with just probable cause, enough evidence to make an arrest. I said Mike Carlson did it. Well, the police have that evidence. They see Mike Carlson and they arrest him. Now, sometimes it's a little bit better or more than that, but it is rarely, and I do mean rarely, ready for a proper indictment and ready for trial, which is what the district attorney has to do. As all of you know, criminal law has the highest standard within the law. We have to prove cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And so one of the key things I always say, the foundation of my office are the investigators. We have to have, not just in my DA's office, but in every DA's office, enough investigators to take those cases from the police where they did their job because they proved probable cause up to a point of arrest. And as we get into technology, that is requiring phone dumps more than you can imagine, because you have to get all the cell phone records. And by that, I mean not just the tower records, but the text messages, the call logs, all of those things. You also have to get social media dumps. The best evidence you can find in the world is on people's social media. And so you have to go into social media. And then the third technology thing that is very common that we have to get is listening to those jail calls and making sure you have the manpower and the hours to do it, because those jail calls are better work than the police will ever do. And so all of these things become necessary for an investigator. And these cases, to do them right, you have to spend this kind of time. And I can tell you, it is a lot of pressure looking at somebody's mama and being able to tell them, I did everything I knew how to do. And the things I've just named for you are the basics. They're not the geofencing. They're not the other things that I would require of my investigators to make sure that we can every time stand up and tell a mom, I can't promise you the results, but I can promise you every single thing that can be done will be done on your child's case. My office, and I know that it's a problem statewide, it has limited technology. I mean, we're doing things like getting temporary licenses and trial runs, things that are just ridiculous to get technology. And so there has to be a real technology investment into district attorneys' offices. Things that we need to build a case, and I've mentioned this, but I want to go back, is the analysis of sexual assault kits, and we will spend some time on that. Cell phone dumping, crime scene recreation, graphic designs for evidence, jail call extractions, surveillance footage. This is huge. Making sure, this is a good example too of sometimes the police may have pulled the video from the store where it happened, but not the one across the street and the one across the other street. And we have a case now where a child was killed in my county. It's a very famous case. And the police did a good job on that. They pulled surveillance from everywhere, but we find ourselves, meaning all the businesses around it, but we find ourselves going back time and time again, canvassing, realizing there's cameras, and that evidence has to be gotten very quickly or you lose it. So these are some of the things we need. And then video and photo enhancement. Sometimes the stores have really amazing technology. Sometimes it's grainy and you have to spend money on experts doing this kind of thing. So let's talk about this GBI backlog a little bit. I want to talk to you about the Saki project. Some of you all are probably familiar with it. It's the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. It's the federal government did it. And what we did was we went back and looked at 2571 pre-1999 sexual assault kits. These are rapes. Women that said they were raped, and police agencies or DA's offices, for whatever reason, decided, yeah, we're not going to test them. So they sat at Grady Hospital. I mean, just disgusting, right? You have women and oftentimes juveniles who are the victims of sexual assault, and they were not tested. Let's talk about the price we paid for that. So we did this again very recently, and there were 1,490 kits that were tested. Out of those tests, we were not able to get DNA proper evidence on all of them. Who knows how much of that had been degraded because so long had gone by the time we did it. But we were successful 149 times, meaning there was enough there that we actually got 149 known offenders. Now, you all know for them to be known, that means they had already been arrested, right? We already had their DNA and CODIS, it was already there. This is the thing that is really scary. Of those 149, 39 were serial sexual offenders. Imagine what we could have stopped if somebody had just thought it was worthy of doing in the first place. And I'm here to tell you, we have another backlog going on at the GBI, and it is no fault and no criticism of your current director. I like him personally. He is a former prosecutor, so I'm fond of him. But he needs the scientists there to be able to test the kits. And I don't know why it's taboo to say that, but it's not going to be taboo today. We need scientists there that can deal with testing these rape kits. So preventable crimes, I want to keep talking about these tests. What we found is of those tests that I told you about, those people collectively committed 1,575 arrests. Scary, right? 8 of them were homicides, 81 sexual assaults. What could we have stopped if we had just tested earlier when we should have? I never want to be doing this Saki project again. Right now, this is my deputy. Her name is Juliana Peterson. She is over the Saki unit. Every year we go to the federal government and we ask them for money so we can go test these kids. I think we got another $1 million to test them. But this is what they're telling us, like, y'all don't even have the people to send the test to. And so I literally have enough work for Ms. Peterson to do, because we have to do this a little bit at a time, All the while people are on the streets. I got enough work for her to do till she's dead. And that is not an exaggeration. There is so much work, so much waiting. Okay, well, let's just test. This year, maybe we can get a batch of another 50, another 50, another 50. How many crimes and criminals are we leaving on the streets? It's frightening. So let's talk about the GBI again in my drug cases. Just in Atlanta, I have in Fulton County, I'm sorry, let me be clear. I have 37 uncharged drug cases. Do you want to know why they're uncharged? Because the drugs are untested. And are you all aware of this GBI policy where if I arrest, let's pick on Mr. Carlson, if I arrest him and the police arrest him and risk their lives to arrest him, and they believe he has meth, heroin, and cocaine on him, the GBI's policy is we test one. Well, guess what? You test one, I charge one. I charge one, they're looking at less time from the start. I am not charging people, and it is unethical for any district attorney to charge people and you do not know, was it even an illegal substance, right? Because sometimes we test it and it wasn't drugs. It was baking powder. It was something else. It's not just unjust to the society because we're not prosecuting those who deserve to be prosecuted. It's also unjust to the person that was stopped, who deserves us to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt and really prove that it was evidence. The GBI needs more scientists to test drugs. Now, I don't get a dime in the district attorney's office if you give more money to the GBI to test drugs, or you get more money to the GBI to test DNA tests. I don't get anything, but guess what I do get? I get to serve my community. And let me tell you something, I'm the DA up here talking about it. Other DAs are feeling my frustration. Do they feel it to my level? No, they don't have my level of crime. They don't have counties as big as I do, but they are feeling it at their scale because of the size of their communities. The reality is I have the largest community daytime rate, meaning living rate. I have over 1 million people that I report to, but the reality is because I do represent the capital city, because this is where people come and work and play, I'm typically representing 2 to 3 million people because everybody comes here. We represent the whole country. Oh, this is actually wrong. I have 300 plus ballistic cases. At my last count, it was 308. What I have had to do in this case, in this area right here, is I am now paying a private lab on some of my murders to test the ballistics, because sometimes it's the crucial piece and I did not want my 90-day clock to run out of me. So I'm having to spend some of my professional services budget to do what the GBI should be doing so that the clock doesn't run out on me. And I do appreciate Mr. Reynolds because he got me to his scientists who said, here are some former scientists who used to work with us. Maybe they can meet your deadlines. Okay. This problem has to be solved. And we have to acknowledge it's a problem. And like I said, at my last count, it was 308. It's been probably a month since I've looked at it. My guess is it's a little higher right now. All right, just so that we can go back to this rape kit, I just want to make sure that you really understand the depths of the cost of the problem. It's about, and this is an approximation, it's about $9,000 to test a rape kit at a private lab. It's an approximation, it's about that amount. Then if we get a private lab, we have to pay for an expert to testify in court. That's typically going to run us $2,000 a day. So maybe we can get them up in a day, but you have to interview them, you have to talk to them, and that's all running tests. Counties would absolutely go bankrupt, to include my county, who's the richest, if we have to pay for this on the volume of cases we have. I wish another sexual assault would never happen and we don't have to have this conversation, but that's not likely to happen. And I want to be real clear. These are rape kits that occur on children and adults. So there's not enough scientists. That's the point. There's not enough scientists for ballistic evidence. There's not enough scientists for DNA evidence. There's not enough scientists for drug evidence. And so one thing that I really would like the House to get very serious about is really looking and seeing what would it take, not just for Fulton County, but statewide. I want to help my brothers and sisters in this fight of getting enough scientists so that all of our things can be tested. And if somebody at the GBI should tell you that they have enough scientists, tell them go on and test the DA in Fulton County's almost 4,000 drug cases and stop skipping drugs, test all of them. All right, this is the number I talked about, but it's just a clear illustration. So we have 820 homicide cases. So what is that? I don't want y'all to think any numbers were fudged here. That's my 184 indicted plus my 600 plus. When you add them up, it's 820. I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician, but I'm pretty sure I got that number right. There are 15 judges, Superior Court judges. I want to be sure that I'm clear. 15 that do criminal work. We have 20 judges, but only 15 that are focused on criminal work, because you have the ones that are at family court and the business court. So we have 15. This is the 54 homicide cases we would get per judge. Now, do they all land at 54? No, we looked at the numbers. Some judges got unlucky. 60 hit their courtroom, 40 something hit this. You get the point though. If they were divided evenly, it would be 54 per judge. How can you help? Well, this is the way that I would ask that you help. One, I think that the state can go through the prosecutor, attorney's council, look at the jurisdictions that are seeing these rising crimes. And I would ask for state-funded investigators and lawyers that are focused on the area of gangs. So just like we have specific prosecutors for drug court, or for your accountability courts, a specific prosecutors when it comes to Fulton, and investigators that deal with this issue of gangs, and that they are regulated to deal with gangs. I have enough gang problems, I can promise you, we would be able to do that. And I tell you, my brothers and sisters across the state would help this. They would also like this thing. The funding for the GBI, we have got to get the GBI properly funded with scientists. It's not giving anybody a raise, it's just making sure they have enough scientists to do the work. Crime fighting technology, please, I'm begging for this. Please make sure that my office and my brothers and sisters' offices, but mine, Fulton County, has the resources so that we can have the technology to go through this technology. I just recently hired an Assistant Chief Crabtree from Georgia Tech. And it's just one of him, because that's all I can afford right now, to go back and to look at technology. And all he does, his job, to look for social media. And let me tell you something else he does that is very needed for me in particular, maybe not prosecutors across the state. I get so many threats. And so a lot of those threats come from digging in the deep, dark web. And so we need those kind of resources to make sure that we know what's going on so that we can be proactive and not reactive. And so crime fighting technology is very important. I think it's pretty obvious Fulton County needs more judges. I think that you should probably do an evaluation statewide and see if there are other communities that also have this problem. When you just look at the growth of what's happened, it's just a reality. You need more judges. Again, doesn't help the DA at all, right? If you put more judges, it will be more courtrooms I have to man. So eventually the logical step is I'll probably need more prosecutors, but they can't get through it. It's not realistic. We talk about this federal funding that's going for 2 years, and it's a joke. We won't be through this backlog in 2 years. I'm looking at close to 25,000 cases when you look at my unindicted and indicted cases. You are looking at the number of homicides. It's a joke. We're going to be in this fight for quite a long time. And I work around the clock. I mean, my prosecutors can tell you, they get emails from me at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. I don't sleep. This keeps me up at night. We are in a real crisis, and I'm tired of people pretending like we're not in a real crisis and we don't need their help. There is no shame in saying, hey, listen, the GBI needs some help so they can have enough manpower to do their job properly. It's what they're supposed to do. It's what we took an oath to do, is to be transparent with the public and let you know, these are the things that we need so we can get out of this backlog. And then there's also some new crime legislation that you're going to be seeing coming your way that we as the district attorney's office are asking for, but it deals with things like repeat offenders on areas of domestic violence, on cases that involve children. And I'm here to tell you, the liberal state of California is world light years ahead of us on really looking at people that abuse the elderly, domestic violence, and children victims. And so we're going to be asking for some of that legislation, as well as, of course, the legislation regarding gang prosecutors. And so again, I just thank you for your time. I would love to answer any questions you have. And I just am so honored that you take this issue seriously and you were willing to stay here today.
All right, thank you very much. Very informative information that you have presented to us, Madam District Attorney. Do we have any comments or questions from members of the committee? We have several that are joining us online. Anyone here wish to answer any question, ask any questions of the DA while she is here? Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, DA Willis. You don't know me, but you're a big fan of mine, given your predecessor. And I thank you for the job that you're doing. Got a couple of questions. You've touched on a lot of the backup stuff that we need to know. But overall, if you had a score sheet of what you could ask and require us to do legislatively, whether it be dealing with the drag racers, the people that are speeding in excess of 100 miles an hour. That's only part of it. The other part is, so many of the other things that we hear about it. And quite frankly, this isn't just a problem that y'all have in Atlanta. We have this in the rural areas of the state also. Our sheriffs in those counties and chiefs, they're dealing with this growing problem with gang violence and everything else. But if you had a wish list of things, specific things that could be legislatively changed to take some of these folks off the street. I know that I talked to one of your lower court judges, and he was dismal about some of the cases that came up of folks traveling in excess of 100 miles an hour, and they're back out on the street quickly in the same cars again. Anything that you could make a recommendation on that and any of these other specifics that you're dealing with. I know you made a lot of requests here.
So let's deal with the issue, because you asked specifically about the drag racing, and, in all candor, because I am a district attorney, I don't deal with a lot of the traffic offenses, but I hear my community and how upset they are about drag racing, and then how dangerous it is, because, when I see it is when someone is either killed or seriously injured because of that dangerous and risky behavior. I think that you all should look at forfeiting cars, really seriously look at that issue. Certainly you want to do so in a way that if some 16-year-old took his mama's car, we don't take the mother's car, but that these people that are doing this over and over again, because you actually have call-ins, again, technology, let me go back to that, on social media. If you have people looking for it, they actually call where everyone is going to be, and that notice is typically given on social media. And so I think that is legislation you should look at. I think that you all are going to have to do legislation to deal with the GBI problem. I think you're going to have to do something that puts more fund into scientists, or if not, we're just never going to be able to deal with the problem. And I want to be really clear. Vic has outstanding scientists. In fact, we usually lose his scientists to the military because they pay better, quite frankly. So we're losing the great scientists he has. So I think you should look at probably some pay increases so we get to keep our scientists, but two, we just need more. That would be on my wish list. And then I have to ask for the gang prosecutors. I've got to ask for gang prosecutors and gang evidence. And then I think that these officials here, meaning the House, Senate, I think you all should start talking to these communities, meaning your county partners, about technology. We can't do this job in the dark ages anymore. We've got to come to 2021. So those would be some of the things in terms of legislation that I asked about these enhancements for people that are repeat DV offenders, people that are repeat elder abuse offenders, and people that are repeat to, disabled people. You all need to deal with that because we want those people off the street because they don't mind harming again and again.
Would you like to make any comments about more streamlined process between your office, the courts, the law enforcement agencies about what they may need?
I think that there's some education needed for police, and I know police are having a hard time recruiting right now. One of the things that I have gone out of my way, he talked about new things we've done to the office. I've created what I call the Justice Liaison. That gentleman's entire job is to make law enforcement happy. And typically that's just with information, meaning that we are in constant contact with them. What do you need? What can we do? This is what we need from your officers. So, and to give them education. Okay, when you bring me a case, how about bring me the police report and the body cam and the dash cam, and we need these things. So I am having great relationships. I mean, absolutely outstanding. I am very pleased with all of my police chiefs right now.
Have Vice Chairman Mathis.
Yeah, DA Willis, thank you so much for your passion. I can just see how much this means to you and how much it means to all of us. I feel your pain about the scientists. I had a little work over my years in the coroner's office, and we have a lot of problems, with autopsy results, toxicology, blood alcohol, all those things. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Mr. Reynolds. I know he works hard. He's done a good job since he's been there. But can you specifically tell us, other than money, what kind of scientists do we need to do the tests that you were talking about, the rape kits and the type of things like that? Because I know we need doctors to do autopsies. I know we need all those, and ballistics. We got all the different things, blood, all the things that we do and all those type things. And I know how all that gets backlogged. Right. I mean, we just have a simple drug overdose. It takes months for us to get that to even complete death certificates. So
and I didn't even talk about how backed up my autopsies were because I knew that was a county function. But you're absolutely right. And when those autopsies are done, we send those blood vials and urine and everything else from the body to the GBI to again stand in this line. So we need forensic biologists, right, to do some of these DNA testing. We need ballistics experts to test. We need scientists.
So you're telling me the scientist means we need a variety of scientists doing all the different parts.
Absolutely.
And that's what I wanted to.
In every area. And I'll tell you something, and I shared it with the, when I went and spoke with the Senate. I recently went to Charlotte. I try to make it a plan. My goal was to hit 4 a year, but it was 2, just because of to go and see what are other major cities doing. So I had the opportunity recently to go to Charlotte, and I met with the police chief there in Charlotte. And he had just unfortunately had a shootout where a little baby was killed, like a 3-year-old was killed. And he told me, he said, yeah, we got, it was 100 sprays, one of those things. And he got the ballistics tested in a matter of 2 days. And I said, how did you do that? And in a matter of 2 weeks, because I had come 3 weeks later, they had taken the ballistics for those scenes, run it through NIBIN, and matched it with all of these different scenes, of different crimes that had happened. And they were beginning to target the people who did it as a result of this. And I said, how did you do that? He said, oh, let me walk you to the top floor. Now, on the top floor of the Charlotte Police Department, if y'all get to Charlotte, please go see it. They had a DNA scientist, an entire lab. They had ballistic scientists. They had fraud examiners. I wanted to cry. He said, well, if I waited on the state, it would take me a year. I said, yeah, I know. Why is North Carolina ahead of Georgia? Atlanta needs those kind of resources. And they want to tell you they have a ballistics expert. They do, but they don't have a peer reviewer. If you don't have a peer reviewer, then it's not a document we can use in court. It's really a waste of time. Yeah. Like we have to make sure that our local cities and our GBI is manned with appropriate scientists, because I can tell you if that same case came, I as the DA or the police chief don't have the right to say, hey, listen, I had an 8-year-old killed around Christmas, leaving the mall, test it now. You need to be able to have that, and they need to be able to prioritize. It's just horrible, and every violent crime is important. I'm not suggesting that any is less than the other, but it is very frustrating when you're waiting and waiting and waiting to get the answers you need to prove the cases. And I can't just because I think it, I feel it, it's we kind of close, we're lukewarm. No, we need the evidence to be able to do the job.
Well, I thank you for that. And I agree with you 100%. And I know you'll have it statewide with all the medical examiners and coroner's office if we had that type of technology. But we need to come up with a game plan to try to convince the state that we can do that. Yeah, and we need to do that. I agree, because it's a serious problem in all 159 counties, to be quite honest with you, across the state. But thank you so much for your passion.
I'm assuming that you came to our committee and asking for an increase in state resources. I'm assuming you've done the same thing with the county commission as well. Is that correct?
It is, and I want to commend my county commissioners. Their office was woefully understaffed, didn't have the space that we needed, and through the federal funding in ORCA, they gave me 74 temporary positions. That's what I talk about with the 2 years. We're not going to be done in 2 years, but they also, the county just recently gave me 55 positions. Now those are like 15 investigators, 15 lawyers. And so that was helpful. What I didn't tell them is, we're probably still, when you do it per capita, looking at Chicago and some other areas, we're probably about 30 still less. Now I'm not saying I should have Chicago prosecutors. Chicago has 800 prosecutors. I'm not asking for 800 prosecutors, although it would be nice. But I do understand that we are a county of over 1 million and they are a county of 5 million. But when you do it per capita, we're still about 30 prosecutors less than where we should be, but we are headed in the right direction. And I really commend my county commissioners for coming together and recognizing something has to change if we want to get out of this backlog.
Okay. Representative Evans is online. She has a comment or a question. Representative Evans, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. And DA Willis, I'm so sorry I'm not there in person to say thank you in person for your service. And I really, it's so sobering to hear you speak today. But it's very important that we understand the problem, and we can't help work towards addressing these issues unless we really understand the problem. I want to just comment on two things in your ask when you talk about one of them is crime fighting technology. And I just want to point out to all of our peers that we heard from the judge about the need to improve technology. And I do hope we can work on investing statewide in some technology to help the prosecutors and the judges. And I know that the chair of the Homeland Security Appropriations is a member of our committee. So I hope that we can make some strides towards investing in that area. And then also, just as a side note, I think this body did pass the street racing and reckless driving bill last year, and we are, and if you're a repeat offender on reckless driving, your car can be forfeited. So that law has already passed. I would just note that. So thank you for your time. I look forward to working with my colleagues to see what we can do to address these deficiencies.
One other piece of legislation, I want to make sure I don't forget it, and my learned colleague reminded me of it, is this gang venue issue. So let me explain to you what that is. I'm a lover of RICO. If you don't know, I was lead prosecutor on Atlanta Public Schools. I think that it is a statute that can be used, and the gang statute can as well. One of the issues we have with gang venue, let me talk to you about that, and I'll do it by telling a story. I have a very good friend of mine who's an attorney, and he recently bought his wife a Range Rover, and they live in Cobb County, my neighboring county. He had a good financial year. You make the wife happy, right? And so he bought a Range Rover for his wife, and I knew that there was something probably wrong with me at this point, and I said, "You bought your wife a Range Rover? Are you crazy? Do you know the Bloods are shopping for Range Rovers in Cobb right now? take it back. Go get her something else so she can be safe. Why do I tell that story? Gangs have no respecters of boundary. And one piece of legislation you could do was to change the way the venue laws are dealt with. And what I mean by that is if I have the Bloods that are here and they're operating out of Southwest Atlanta, and the vast majority of their crime they do is right there within their neighborhood, but they have one of these predicate acts, meaning one act like a car theft or something little that they're doing in the neighboring counties. If you all could relax venue in those narrow circumstances where that we could include it in our prosecution here in Fulton, not just to name it as a example of their crimes, but actually able to prosecute it if the hub of the crime was within our community. And this would be true for any community, not just Fulton. That is a piece of legislation that I hope that you'll look at.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online have any other comments or questions? Again, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We appreciate your honest and your candor with the committee and for your giving of your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Is there anyone out in the audience that wishes to speak before we dismiss here today? Okay. There be no further business before this committee. We stand adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving.